Welcome to Lotus Me Bloom podcast. This is your host, Madison Ansel, and this podcast is all about spirituality, self-development, things I've learned, and so much more. If you're into that stuff, then you found the right podcast. This episode is all about shadow work. I know that sounds scary, right? Like, oh, shadow. It is something that I truly believe. This is what makes you spiritual, okay? If you are doing the work, you know, I talk about this often, but there's so many people that are spiritual, quote unquote, and they're just living the spiritual aesthetic, all this shit, you know, they look like a hippie, whatever, crystals, oracle cards, let me give you a reading, whatever. But they don't do the work. They don't do the inner work. They don't do the inner child healing. They don't do any type of healing. They're still running around with their child wounding and their egos are inflated as fuck. And I'll do an episode on the ego because I'm not bashing the ego. And honestly, the ego plays into everything I'm about to say because our ego is just trying to protect us. And it does say those things that, you know, make us believe certain things because it wants to keep us safe. But a lot of people are out here being spiritual for ego purposes of like, oh, look at me. Give me your money. Oh, I'm important. Look at all these followers. Yeah, I do readings, but it's because I want to be popular and readings are really popular. So let me tell you this generic ass message. I'm being a dick. I'm sorry. But I don't hate on anyone that does that shit. I really don't. Like, sometimes I pull oracle cards and shit. But there are some people that they know that those videos get views and they do it for money purposes. That's why you see so many like big spiritual type of influencers get hacked. Because those people literally do, you know, copy all their shit and like message people and be like, hey, I'll give you a reading. Even though like they're probably some Joe Schmo works at like McDonald's and they're just taking people's money. Because it's popular. Spirituality is popular. And people are taking advantage of that. And there are people that don't have good intentions and they're just doing this for the aesthetic reasons, or they're just doing it for clout or whatever. And let me tell you, all that, the people that do that type of shit will get what they deserve. I'm just saying, like, you're telling people all this bullshit, and there's some people that invest so much into people's businesses and, you know, they cling to the shit you tell them, and it's fucked up if you have ill intentions about it. Let me just say, like, and you will get what you deserve with it. I've seen so many people like on TikTok talking about other people that have like all of a sudden fallen off or like gone insane or whatever the case is, because they're portraying this version of themselves that isn't genuine and true. They're doing it for money. They're doing it for clout. You know, I saw someone, it popped up on my For You page on TikTok. She was talking about how she invested into an astrology reading from this guy who has 500,000 followers. And I actually looked at his page too. I didn't watch any of his stuff, but he he does the basic, like, you know, oh, like zodiac type of shit with the music and the little skits and shit. Well, she got a reading done from him and he got on the Zoom call and had his camera off, and she literally gave him her like birth chart info, even though she was already required to give it to him like when she purchased it. And he just looked up her shit like anyone else would on like any other astrology type of site, and just like read off what the website said and compared it to his shit. So like that's what I'm talking about. Like, people are just out here doing shit for money, for clout, and for their ego, and it's just not cool. So if you actually like, if you're spiritual and shit, I want to know, okay, do you do the work? Do you do the shadow work? Like, do you heal from your shit and try to be a better person? and try to be the best version of yourself. That's why when someone's like, yeah, I'm spiritual, or they post like they're into crystals and shit, like that's cool. And I'm not saying you have to like, be deep into the spirituality for you to like crystals and shit. But it's just like people want to have that title of like, yeah, I'm spiritual, and it's always for, like I said, it's like ego purposes. I know people personally that post about spirituality and manifestation and, zodiacs, and they try to like act like this mentor of like, look at me, I'm living my best life. I manifested this and I manifested that, and 222 333. There's so many people that I know that always are posting angel numbers, and I'm like, do you even know what those mean? Like, or you just saw it on TikTok that it means like new beginnings, because 111 might mean something different to everybody. And I always encourage you to like make your own meanings for them, even though there are sometimes I go with the general terms of stuff. Okay, 555 means change coming. Cool. That's what I associate it with. But it's just like all these people are posting and getting tattoos of the angel numbers and all this shit. And I'm like, are you even about this life though? Like, have you even done the inner work? Because it's always the same people that I know damn well that haven't. Because they act the same that I knew them back in fucking high school, and their egos are inflated and they're doing shit for the aesthetic purposes because they want attention. And this is just my rant because it does piss me off, because there are people out here that have genuine intentions and really good fucking information to help people heal and work through their trauma. And it's just like there's people out here who get all this positive feedback from people that like literally are just shit with their intentions about it, and like are just doing it for, like I said, ego purposes, clout reasons, followers, whatever the case is, or to look some type of way. But it's like you haven't even done any type of healing work and you still are an asshole. And like, yeah, it makes me mad. There's so many people. I know it's trendy. Everyone's got the angel numbers tattooed on them. Everyone's doing this. Everyone's got crystals. Everyone's manifesting their best life. But you can't sit here and tell me that you're spiritual and you have not done any type of shadow work. You haven't done any type of healing. You haven't tried to be the better version of yourself. You still are an asshole to people, and your intentions are shitty. Like, you cannot, this is why I'm always like, okay, you're spiritual, cool. But are you actually? Are you actually doing the work? Are you actually like genuine, pure hearted? Because a lot of people aren't. And that's what makes me mad, because there's people out here on TikTok that have like, 100,000, 200,000 followers, and they're just doing the basic bare minimum stupid ass skits just for views. And I get it. Like, they're fun. I do them. But like, I also can provide healing for people because I've healed myself. And that's the thing. My teacher always said, you can only heal someone from how much you've healed yourself. I'm really trying not to sound like a bitch or like have some spiritual ego where I think I'm better than anyone. But it just really pisses me off, because I'm glad that it's trendy, because, it is easier to get what we're trying to say, like people like me that have messages and want to help people out there to those who need it. And it's not being so suppressed. And, it is good for business. But at the same time, it's just like there's so many people out here doing shit that they should not be doing. Oh my God, with all like the spells and shit too. I'm just like, Jesus, don't. Jesus, take the wheel. And plus there's just like a lot of bullshit information that people are spreading. And it's just like, it's so frustrating for people that have good intentions and aren't getting, the following or aren't getting the sales like some other people who literally are scamming the hell out of people. So yeah, my rant's over. I'm sorry. But this is what you need to do to be spiritual, in my opinion. Like, you need to live the lifestyle. If you're going to say you're spiritual, you need to live the lifestyle, not just manifest and buy some crystals. Like, that's why I always will feel out like, okay, I'm always down to have, spiritual friends that are into the astrology and want to go shopping for crystals and stuff. But if you're not on that level that I'm at, where I'm like, okay, we're actually doing the work together, and like, how can we work together? It's just like, okay, you're going to be that friend that I do that type of stuff with, but you're not going to be like a genuine friend that I feel like we could uplift each other. You know what I mean? It's hard to find spiritual friends that are local, especially if you live like in a smaller area, but it's hard to find people that are on the same level and like truly want to come together and figure out, okay, those are your limiting beliefs. Okay, cool. Like, well, you can say, your affirmations to me and I'll say them to, like vice versa. Like someone that's actually going to uplift you and call you out on your bullshit type of shit. Not just like, hey, you want to go buy some crystals and tattoo 333 on us? And no shade to anyone that has the angel numbers tattooed on you. I've always wanted 444 tattooed on me. But it's just always the people that aren't about this life that try to act like they're about this life. I can't. Can you guys tell? I just can't. I do have one person that I truly feel like we're always on the same page, and we're not like super, super close, but every time I talk to her, like we're just, talking about deep shit and like how we can change and get better. And she's given me resources and I've given her resources, and I truly like love her soul. She's a very genuine person, and at the looks of it, no one would even know that she's like spiritual or anything else. Like, she doesn't post about it or anything like that. Just kind of seems like the people that have the biggest egos with it are the ones that are acting like it, and the ones that are actually spiritual, you would never know. But I will say, at the end of the day, genuine, pure intentions always win. They always win. So if you're in that situation and you're like, man, like I'm out here trying to genuinely help people, and there's people that are like getting more positive feedback and everything else and not doing it with pure intentions, let me just tell you, it will fall apart for them at some point in their life. I know that sounds bad, but I know people that have tried to be like me and have copied me, and it used to piss me off. But at the end of the day, like, they are not me, and they can do what they want to do with their shitty intentions. And most of the time it doesn't work out. It just doesn't. I've had people that have tried to, copy me, be like me, and their shit just never ends up panning out. So, done with the rant. I'm sorry. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer episode, but shadow work, it's all about getting deep into our subconscious. I Googled it for you guys, and the definition that came up when I looked up shadow work, because I like to be a little proper, it says working with your unconscious mind to uncover the parts of yourself that you suppress to hide from yourself. So that's basically what it is. It's your shadow side. It's the side of yourself that you don't love. It's the side of yourself that isn't necessarily healed. It's the side of yourself that you suppress and you try to, forget about. It's the parts of ourselves we don't really like. And we sometimes ignore it and act like it's not there. And a lot of this has to do with like limiting beliefs. I have an episode on that. Limiting beliefs. If it's not out yet, it's going to be out. It's working with our inner child and healing. It's about healing. Our shadow isn't bad. It's not negative. It's just the side of ourself that we haven't really healed yet. Or it's the inner child wounding. It's the limiting beliefs that we had programmed into us as young adults and children. It's the trauma, it's the side of ourselves that we just don't always like to think about. For example, it's kind of like our flaws. Shadow is the side that there's trauma, there's limiting beliefs there. It's the version of myself that doesn't feel like I'm worthy, doesn't feel like I'm good enough. I've worked on it and I've come such a long way, and I truly believe that I am worthy, I'm good enough, and I do love myself. But there's this version of myself that when I'm triggered or when I'm upset, that those shadow feelings come back up. And each time you work with it different and you get better with it, and you want to be friends with your shadow. You want to integrate your shadow instead of being like, that's them, that's outside of myself, that's not me. No, like, start looking at those things you don't want to look at, because they are a version of yourself. It is you, and it's nothing to be like ashamed about. We all have it. We all have sides of ourselves that has wounding, and healing is forever process, guys. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to get better at it. Like, you're going to be friends with your shadow. And a lot of the time our shadow is just trying to show us like what needs shifted in our life, or what needs to, be worked through to let go of. And when that side and those feelings come up, a lot of us, most of us, suppress it. We drink, we smoke, we party, we eat. That's how most people in, the world handle their shadow. They don't like to look at the shit that makes them uncomfortable. When they get triggered, they're like, oh, I've had a hard day, I'm going to drink. They don't want to look at what the shadow is trying to show them. And most of the time it's just like, if you're feeling a certain way, like for me, like I've really gotten familiar with my shadow, and I know like the cycles of my life. And when I'm kind of feeling down, it's usually just a sign for me to go in a little bit deeper and release another layer of something that I've been working on. So like I've come a long way with working with my self-worth and, feeling like I'm good enough and all that stuff, but it still comes up for me because it was a very deep wound for me. So occasionally it'll come back up and I'll have those feelings and I have to look at them again and I have to deal with it. And it's just another layer, because there's so many layers to healing, and each time gets better. So it's not something you want to run away from or be like, oh, shadow side, like, oh, that's so negative, like, da-da-da. No, it's yourself. There's no positive or negative. It just is. It just is. It's a version of ourselves that just needs attention and just needs healing. And just honestly, it's what our ego is. Our ego wants to feel safe. And so when our shadow comes up, usually it's like, freaking out. The ego starts freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, like, you can't quit your job. Like, what are you talking about? Like, no, this is not like what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you don't have enough money to do this. Like, why do you think this is possible? It's those thoughts. It's those limiting beliefs that I've talked about in another episode that come up. It's that shadow. It's the things that we fear. It's fear. That's what most of the shadow is. It's just fear. And it's just fear of things that we don't, know that are going to turn out, fear of the unknown. But our ego freaks out when we go to take a new opportunity. We're like, oh no, like, that's not for us. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, oh, I'm just better staying comfortable. It's because our ego wants to feel safe. And when the ego is uncomfortable, it doesn't feel safe. So it's just trying to keep us safe. There's nothing wrong with the shadow. The ego just is reminding us of like shit that might have happened in the past. And like the ego is a good thing. Like, okay, we burn our hand on the stove and we remember to not put our hand on the stove again. You know what I mean? Like, that's what the ego does with our shadow. It's like, okay, you had a really bad experience with your past partner. Okay, let's caution this new relationship. Your ego flips out like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get hurt again. But it doesn't have to prevent you from trying to find someone new. It doesn't have to prevent you from finding love. It's just warning us because, you've had experiences before. So you have to look back. That's a sign. Your ego's telling you, okay, I'm flipping out about this right now because there's some beliefs or there's some programming or there's some trauma here that I need to look at before I get into this new relationship. You know what I mean? It's something I had to do. I did so much work on myself before I met my partner. And when I met my partner, like I thought I was like, oh, you know what? I did all of the healing work. I did the trauma. Like I went through it all. I'm good. No, it triggered another layer when I met him, and everything was fine. But it was just like my shadow came back up because it's like, this isn't safe. This isn't safe. Remember what happened last time? No, this is not good. You're not good enough. Like it's just triggering us so we can look deeper. Okay, that's really all it is. I promise it's not as scary as it sounds. But it's just working with our wounds and working through our limiting beliefs. And it can be something very surface level, like, okay, I'm going to write down my limiting beliefs. This is where it came from. Let me poke holes at it. This is why it's not true. And these are my new affirmations. It can be that simple, or it can be really deep. And lots of feelings come up with shadow work, feelings of unworthiness. You may feel like it's the end of the world, and you might feel hopeless, and all these feelings like that have came up that you used to suppress, of feeling like you'll never find love, or, you'll never feel appreciated, or whatever the case is. That stuff comes back up. And that's why it's not always easy, and it's not always comfortable to do this work, but it's essential, because a lot of the things we want to manifest don't manifest because we haven't done the shadow work, because there's underlying beliefs and subconscious programming that we haven't dealt with that's keeping us from having the life we want to live. Because you can be doing all the manifestation work, you can, journal, script. And I've talked about this in my episode about manifestation. You can do all the things, but if your beliefs are different, and even if you say, well, I do believe I deserve this, I do believe I deserve money, or whatever the case is, there's subconscious beliefs that are shadow. It's the stuff we suppress that's not really in our, conscious everyday life that we think about, that can be preventing us from having the manifestation. So that's where the shadow work comes in. It's diving deep into, okay, well, I feel like I'm worthy of this new relationship, but maybe there's something lingering in my past. So you journal, you do what you need to do to tap into that subconscious mind. And sometimes you really might not be aware of your beliefs because it's so subconscious, it's so suppressed. And that's really what spirituality is all about, is becoming aware of our programming, becoming aware of the things we say to ourselves, becoming aware of our own shit. And shadow work helps us become more aware of stuff that we may have suppressed. That is essentially creating a block in our manifestation, or a block in allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with our partner, whatever the case is. It's just healing work. That's all it is. And you can become aware of the subconscious stuff by journaling and by diving deep into your past and your childhood stuff, because you may be like, okay, I'm worthy of this relationship, but there was this one time, fucking 10 years ago, that I dated this guy who used to badmouth me every single day and make me feel like I'm not worthy enough. Oh, I forgot about him and I'm over him. But let's revisit that, because instead of me dealing with it at the time and doing the work of, no, I am good enough, I am going to sit down and write out my limiting beliefs, I closed that book and time heals all, right? And I moved on with my life. I shoved it underneath the rug. How he made me feel. That's why I say time really doesn't heal all. It definitely can help. And usually it helps because the wound isn't as fresh and we forget about it and we suppress it. But there's things that still linger if we don't deal with it. And that's why I always say, like, no, it doesn't heal all. It's about how you deal with it. Because I've mentioned before in other episodes where I literally talk about how there's things in my past that I just was like, okay, whatever, I'm moving on from it, whatever. But it came back up, 3-4 years later, and it still feels like fresh because I didn't deal with it. So this is where the shadow work comes in. And you can access it through like a psychic healing as well. Getting a psychic healing or working with someone, like even a therapist, a different perspective overall helps you just realize like your own shit. Sometimes it's like it's so hard to work on yourself, guys. So like, please be easy with yourself when you do this. And I applaud you. Like, give yourself a pat on the back for even wanting to do this, because most people don't deal with their shit. Most people walk around as wounded children, and they go over the same thoughts every single day, and they live their life through the same program beliefs that were given to them as children, and they don't deal with their trauma. They drink it away. They, smoke, they party, they eat, they do whatever it is to not feel that way. So if you're doing this, you're fucking awesome. But what I was trying to get to is like, working on yourself is difficult. If you're a healer, like for me personally, doing Reiki on myself is not the same as getting it done from someone else. So it's perfectly okay. And I encourage you to seek advice or seek help. You don't have to do this all by yourself and all alone. That's what therapists are for. That's what, spiritual guides are for. I've had lots of psychic healings done because I can do a psychic healing on myself, but it's not the same because it's filtered through my own shit. And that's how great therapy is. I've been in therapy before, and it's the one thing that they can say that can just change everything. I had a therapy session before, and she said something so small. It was basically just validating me and saying you're allowed to feel that way. That was so healing to me, because I always felt like I wasn't allowed to feel that way. And truly, it changed so much for me. It was like the little piece to the puzzle. And I was able to really heal a lot from that. So don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're having a hard time and these emotions are too much for you, and you do have some deep trauma that you just don't feel like you can unpack yourself, please go see someone professionally to help you, a therapist, counseling, whatever the case is, because some of this stuff does get deep. Some of the stuff is hard to look at, and there's definitely been times when, it's just too much, and I've luckily been able to work through all of it. But it does bring up deep wounding. It brings up deep emotions. It brings up, a lot of shit that we have to face and make you very uncomfortable. I mean, I have been able to deal with it by myself, but there's times when I know that I'm going through this like hermit mode where I don't want to talk to anyone. I kind of get depressed, and for me, that's a sign to go into my healing and look at where this is coming from someone who used to really suffer with depression. My depression more is a sign for me now, whereas in the past, I was just always depressed, and it was because I had a lot of wounding that I didn't deal with. And truly, like, I feel like I have healed my depression because I healed my wounding. And I know that is a lot for some people, and I know like mental health is a very heavy topic. That's why I don't love talking about it. And I'm not gonna like sit here and be like, I never get depressed. I do. But for me now, I know how to work with it. I have the tools to work with it. And usually it's just a sign for me to go deeper into what's coming up for me. So if I'm feeling super unworthy, okay, let's go into that. And most of the time, guys, it's inner child wounding. And this is where I want to dive into the inner child, because at the root of all of this stuff with the shadow work and healing and the trauma, it comes back to our inner child. So for me, when I get really depressed, it's most of the time, not all the time, it's a sign from my inner child that I'm not honoring her. And our inner child is what it sounds like. It's who we were before all of the programming, all of the shit that was put onto us by society, by, our family, friends. It's when we were pure-hearted kids who believed everything was possible, and we dreamed, and we had hopes and ambitions towards life. And a lot of the time, as we get older, we shut that inner child out. That's why I like to say a quote that I heard someone else say, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but we're just adults running around as wounded children. Because our inner child is that version of ourselves, that heartfelt version of ourselves that we inspired to be like. The version that believed we could do anything. We believed in love. We believed that people were good. We believed that we could do anything we wanted to because we were enough. It's the version of ourselves that we felt worthy. We felt enough because nothing told us otherwise. And it's just what happens. Most of us at some point shut our inner child out. Most of the time, like teen years, it just kind of depends for everyone. Some people shut it out early. It's the version of ourselves that wants to play and have fun and enjoy life. But, life, society, family, the programming makes us believe that we can't be happy and live the life we want to live and also make money. Or we can't trust other people. We don't believe things are possible. We can't go after our dreams. We have to be serious. We're adults now. There's no fun in adulting. It's that type of energy that we shut our inner child out. It's the programming. Because at some point in your childhood or young teen years, someone told you, get real. You have to get serious. Oh, you want to be an actor? You're fucking insane. That's not possible. You want to be a chef? Yep. That's not going to make you money. You better go to college. So it's just those stories. It's the stories that were told to us by society. For a lot of artistic people, society always is like, oh, you want to be an artist? Good luck. I remember feeling that way when I was a senior in high school. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going here. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a physical therapist. And I'm over here like, oh, well, I'm going into like electronic media and audio. And, low key really wanted to be an actress and I wanted to go to school for performing arts. But I was told, you can't make money doing that. And by society like really looks down on like artists and people that are creative. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can do that shit. Okay. You can do anything you want to fucking do. But this is where, like I said, the inner child comes in. We ignore what we want. And majority of the time, that is going to lead to depression. It's going to lead to alcoholism, whatever the outlet is for you. I went many years suppressing, partying, drinking, smoking, whatever the case is, because I literally just couldn't bear sitting with how I felt inside. And I was depressed. And literally, guys, after doing this stuff, doing the work, I realized I was so depressed because my inner child was not being honored. There was no fun. There was no play. There was no worthiness. There was no believing in my life. And, it led to this just version of myself that was very hopeless. And we do this ourselves too. We're like, why are you joking around? You need to act serious. You need to get real. This isn't just some fucking playground. But let me tell you, life is a fucking playground. Have fucking fun. Life is short. Why the fuck are we going to sit here and be miserable and never do the thing we want to fucking do? I don't understand it. And I don't understand why that is forced upon us. And when you break out of the matrix of a lot of people that fucking talk about this, when you step onto the spiritual journey, that's what I'm talking about. You step into your power and you realize that your beliefs that were programmed to you at a young age by society, whatever the case is, don't have to be yours. You can change your beliefs. You can go after what you want. That's what really stepping into the spiritual journey is realizing you can take control of your life and you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. You don't have to live this life of just going to work, eating, sleeping, repeat. And I get that there are some people that feel how am I supposed to do what I love when I can't pay my bills? I get it. I truly get it. And it's hard to give those people those answers. And I understand you got to do what you got to do, but take a step every day towards something you want to do. Okay, you have to work 40 hours a week. There's that really big YouTuber, Aaron Dowdy. I'm sure you guys have heard of him if you're into the spiritual shit. He used to work a 40-hour job a week, and every day he'd come home and record a video on YouTube and upload it. Now he's got millions of subscribers, but you can do it. And this is where the shadow work comes in. It's honoring the inner child. I work on so many clients that are adults that, the message, get in touch with your inner child. Have more fun. Have more fun. Whatever way that is for you. I'm not saying you have to quit your job and, go after your childhood dream. But if that's what you feel you need to do, do it. But it's really just about having more fucking fun and self-care and being more childlike, laughing, drawing, being creative. Being creative is the key to connecting to your inner child. So whatever way that is for you, if you like to fucking play with Play-Doh or slime, I love fucking slime. I ordered slime oh my God, every week. It seemed like in the month of June, I was ordering slime. But it's the small shit that people are are you kidding me? How old are you? It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. If your inner child wants to go play tennis, go play tennis. Have fun. That's what the inner child's about. It leads to depression and, this miserable life because we feel like we can't be that version anymore. So shadow work is going into the trauma and seeing the beliefs and looking at, okay, what happened for me to feel this way that I can't, go after my childhood dreams? Who told me I couldn't? Look at it and you can release it in different ways. You can journal. You can do what I talk about in the limiting belief episode that may be out after this one. Journal, poke holes at the belief and make affirmations for that and reprogram it. You can do EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. It's tapping And tapping is really powerful for releasing stuck emotions in the body. You will tap at certain points in your body and it helps release. So you may cry. Crying's great. I always encourage you to cry, but you release things out of your energetic field and your emotional field. Reiki is great. Reiki is really healing for emotional, a lot of physical pain we store in our body is emotional. So you can store some trauma that happened to you as a child in your right hip or whatever the case is. So Reiki is great for breaking that up. Meditation's great. Oh my gosh, inner child meditations. There's so many, but what I love to do, and it's something I really started to do like early on in my journey, doing the limiting belief work. Okay, writing out how you feel. Where did it come from? Most of the time it does come from childhood. Okay, there's this experience where this happened to me and made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Go back to that version in a meditation or whatever. It doesn't even have to be like meditation, you know what I mean? Just like close your eyes and imagine. And go back to that version of yourself in that point of time and give that version of yourself what you need. So if that version of yourself just needed a hug and be told that everything's going to be okay and that it's not your fault, I love you. If that is what your baby version of yourself needed, then go back as who you are now and give them what they need. And oh my God, it's so healing. Like I've done this just on my own. I've done it with meditations where you listen to what your inner child said. I've listened to meditations where my inner child's like pissed off at me and like saying like, you fucking abandoned me. Like, what the fuck? That is like so heartbreaking when we realize that we are just children. Like, we are still like energetically like a child. And there was a trend going around on TikTok not too long ago about like, when I say I'm not good enough, I'm telling her I'm not good enough. And it's like a bunch of baby pictures. That fucking TikTok hit me. I did it. I think I did it. But I always got emotional like looking back because it's true. That negative self-talk, if you think you're a piece of shit and you're not good enough, you would not say that to the 7-year-old version of yourself. And you don't deserve it. Like, stop saying that shit to yourself. And I'm guilty. I get very negative. I get down on myself. I have feelings of unworthiness come up. And when I do the inner child work, it just really puts it in perspective of like, why am I talking to myself like this? I wouldn't talk to her like this. I would tell her to do whatever she wanted to do. I would tell her she's worthy and she's good enough and I love her. So why am I talking to myself like this? Because I'm still that person. So it gets so deep, guys. It gets so deep. But really, shadow work, I feel like, is at the root inner child healing. Because a lot of us, like I said, we're running around with programming and things that, we picked up as children. And like I said, this is not to bash our parents or our family because they're just doing what they were taught. And, I'm sure a lot of them have their own inner wounding that they have never looked at. And guys, when you do this shit, you're healing for your family as well. Especially if it's like ancestral stuff. Like there's stuff that I feel like isn't mine, but I carry it. And once you do the shadow work and you look into your beliefs and work with your trauma, it helps heal your family as well. And maybe you might not see it directly, but when you go to have children, you're not going to be passing that stuff on to them. And if you already had kids and you're like freaking out, like, oh my God, I fucked up, like, pass the shit on to them. No one's perfect, okay? And like, no matter what, like, you can be super healed and all this other shit And like, you still have your shadow and you still have your shit, you know? So like, no one's ever going to be 100% healed or perfect. And the fact that you're even listening to this podcast means you've come a long way, and that you actively are aware that you want to be better. Like, that's all it takes. And just because I've done healing on myself doesn't mean like I'm perfect, okay? I never want to come across like I'm just perfect. I still deal with a lot of shit. I still deal with, you know, layers of healing, of unworthiness, and it still comes back up. And you will find that shit that you feel like you've dealt with comes back up, and it's just so that you can release another layer. Or sometimes it's just a little lesson, like, did you learn your lesson? But a lot of the times it's just another layer that needs to be released. So I hope I explained this. I know this episode's gonna be pretty long, but there's so many different ways to go into your shadow. You can meditate, like I said. You can do breath work. Breath work is amazing to release stagnant energy. You can just have the intention that, okay, I want to be better, and I want to look at these things and reflect. Sit and reflect. You know, why do I feel this way? And there's something called like the mirror exercise that really helped me, but I took a lot of situations where I blamed other people and I reflected it back to myself. Because here's the thing, like I said, and I was probably saying almost every episode, it always comes back to self-love and self-worth. So I took how I felt about the situation, even some situations that weren't my fault. I reflected them back to myself. And I realized, okay, what was I not giving to myself in this moment for me to feel this way? So I talk about this a lot in my self-love podcast or episode about how you feel about yourself reflects. So when there was times when I wanted, you know, validation of my worth from other people, when I was seeking love from other people, in that period, I wasn't giving the love to myself. And that's shadow work. It just realizing and sitting with that stuff, that's all shadow work is. It's just looking at the shit you don't want to look at and loving yourself through it. Don't beat yourself up. Do not. We've all done fucked up shit. We've all done shit we don't, you know, want to talk about, or we've all done shit that we're not proud of. But that doesn't make us less of a person. That's literally like what we come here on earth to do, is to fuck up and learn lessons and be better, you know? So don't beat yourself up. Look at it and love yourself, because that version of yourself was only operating and working with the resources they had at that point in time. You can't blame yourself for not knowing shit you didn't know, okay? You did the best you could at that time. Even if you did something shitty, you didn't know any fucking better. It was just where you were at that point in time, and you can't blame yourself for what you know now. Okay, you can't be like, well, why did I just fucking do this instead of that? And, well, you didn't know any better. You were operating from probably wounding, and you were probably suppressing it, and you didn't want to deal with it. Now you know that you can heal, and that you can work on yourself and be a better version of yourself, and that there is hope for you. But at the time, all you knew was, all you knew was the programming that you had and how to deal with it. And maybe you dealing with it was drinking every damn night. But that's how you dealt with it. And that's fucking okay. That's how we learn. There's shit I've done that I'm not proud of. And there's, I used to live a life that I, would never hope to live again. But I did what I could to get through it. The beginning of me healing my depression, I went to substances. I went to drinking. I went to smoking. That got me to a place of neutrality. Was I still depressed and upset? Yes. But I wasn't as depressed and upset as I used to be prior to that. And then eventually I got to a place where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to depend on anything. I don't want to smoke my pain away. I don't want to smoke my, like I want to be present and I want to be able to deal with it. Because let me tell you, you dealing with your shit is so fucking powerful. It makes you so fucking strong. You are a strong motherfucker if you're dealing with your fucking shit right now. Because a lot of people out here don't want to do that. It takes a lot of balls and a lot of fucking strength to sit with your shit, look at it in the fucking face, and deal with it. It takes a lot. And you're fucking strong if you're doing the work. That's why I say, if you're spiritual, are you actually about the life? Because a lot of people aren't willing to look at their shit and fucking put their ego down. Because like I said, there's different types of ego. There's ego where like it wants to protect us, but then there's ego that's like, hey, look at me. I want all the attention, and I'm doing it to make myself feel better. That type of ego. And so there's a lot of people that don't want to be authentic and be real. They want to live out through someone else or take the easy way out. And so if you're dealing with your shit and you are on this journey, you're a strong motherfucker, okay? Like, so proud of you for even listening to this fucking episode. And if you haven't started this and you haven't done your healing, but you want to, you're still strong as fuck, okay? There's so many people that would look at this fucking title and be like, what the fuck? Fuck that. Inner child wounding. I don't have that. Nah. I'd rather know how to fucking pick up chicks with my sexy bod. I'm just fucking. But I think I hit all the main points. I didn't, want to go super deep, but I also wanted to explain what it was. And there's definitely programs you can do. There's so many different things you can do to work with your shadow, and it doesn't have to be so deep. You can go as deep as you want. And if you're not ready to go super deep, that's fine. You just sitting here listening to this and having an open mind and maybe want to start journaling about how you feel and how you can change those limiting beliefs you have, then that's perfectly fine. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do this. And I just wanted to touch on it because I know like a lot of subjects that I talk about is going to stem back to my limiting belief episode and this one. So truly, like, at the end of the day, like, it's always about healing and being the better version of ourselves and self-love and self-worth and the inner child. Truly, inner child is like huge. I've done meditations before on the inner child just to connect, and you will find that your inner child's probably pissed off at you, but there's ways you can heal that relationship and just start doing those things. It's really not that hard. Like, it's not rocket science, guys. Like, just tap in to your heart. And what is it that you're not doing that you wish you were doing? What is it that is fun and creative to you? And that's going to be different for everyone. So there's no like correct answer. For me, it's going after my dreams. It's going after what I wanted as a child. It's learning guitar and, playing and having fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I know it's kind of a lot. And like I said, try to seek professional help if you really have some, deep shit that you need to unpack. Someone will help you. Therapists are great. And you can even try to reach out to me if you have questions, like on my social medias. I try to make content as much as I can or give a message here and there, but just love yourself, love your shadow. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. It's a version of yourself that needs a little work, needs a little love. And sometimes the root of that is just some shit that someone told you at the age of 10. And it's just a limiting belief that needs shifted. Maybe it's a limiting belief that was told to you over and over and over again. It just is really programmed into your mind now, and you just have to slowly keep releasing it and doing the things like reprogramming with the affirmations and subliminals and whatever the case, taking inspired action, and start taking the actions to align yourself with that version of yourself that you want, like my manifestation episode. Doing those things can get you to where you want to be, and loving your shadow. It's just like a little sign to say, okay, I'm feeling these feelings right now. Where is it coming from? Let's listen to a meditation, take a bath. Like, it doesn't have to be so deep, but if it is, like I said, seek professional help. This is just kind of like a introduction for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about. And I know shadow work is always kind of confusing, and people are like, what does that mean? Like, sounds kind of scary, but it's really not. And it's a forever process thing. Like, you can do a bunch of shadow work and then don't do any shadow work for like a year. I did a shit ton of shadow work like all of last year. I did like a program, and it went pretty deep into inner child stuff. I did psychic healing work and really had to work on feeling invalidated and start validating myself. And it's hard emotions, lots of crying. I'm used to that though. I get pretty emotional sometimes. There's times when I get pretty depressed. Like I said, the depression and those feelings are just a sign for me either to go deep or take a step back and be like, okay, I'm doing too much. I need to relax. I need to go take a bath. I need to read a book and lay in bed. So it's going to be different for everyone. And this is what I encourage you to do always, is to figure out your own, signs and synchronicities and your own intuition. Tap into your own higher self. You know the answers. I can't give you the answers. I'm just trying to guide you to find your own answers. So with that being said, I know there's some things I probably skipped out on how you can heal and do all that other stuff. There's so much though. There's so much resources out there. There's so much on YouTube. There's so much, guys. Just honestly loving yourself and knowing that you're enough and doing that type of self-love work is like the key. I will always say that. But if you guys want to find me on social media, all my personal stuff is at Madison Ansel, MADYSONANCELL. All that stuff will be in the show notes. I'm pretty active on TikTok, and I try to post a lot over there. But my business stuff on social media is at Lotus Me Bloom, and my website is lotusmebloom.com if you want to get some crystals or intention setting candles, or if you want to book like a remote Reiki session if you're not local. But yeah, I hope this was informative. I hope I could help you, and please be easy on yourself and know that you're worthy and know that you are enough, and just don't beat yourself up, guys. That's just not what you want to do. You don't deserve to beat yourself up. Look at that inner child version of yourself and realize that you would not say those things to that version of yourself. So why are you saying it now? Okay? That's all I got to say. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.